Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Planet Coaster, or Planet Coaster, where we are continuing our build with Santa's Village. Last time we kind of went ahead and built just some of the basic structures to house like a shop and the information and toilets and that sort of thing. This time around we're actually going to be building a ride. Not just any ride, we're doing a ghost train. And I built it at the end of last episode, but I decided I didn't really like the tracks. As you can see, the last couple seconds here, I was kind of rebuilding just this one little stretch of track. I didn't like how it just kind of went around and whipped around. And I ultimately really like how the double bunny hops kind of turn out. You can see a little bit of a preview here at lightning speed. I swear it's a lot smoother when you're actually riding it. But yeah, so we just finished up doing that, and then I think we're about to move right on to the floor here in just a second. Oh, I'm doing a little bit of smoothing. I recorded all of this footage last night, and I'm recording the voiceover the next day later, so it's kind of interesting to try to remember exactly when I do what. So I might get it wrong a little bit, but you'll have to bear with me. But just like my building style, this is going to be the perfect showcase of kind of the reason why I never have done any Planet Coaster videos like this in the past. And that is, my style of building is very, very much just trial and error. What do I want to place? I don't know. Let's pull up the scenery bar and scroll through and see what catches my eye. And that's sort of how I build in this game. So, but I think ultimately by the end of this, it looks pretty good. I actually really like how this ride turned out. As you can see, I'm just putting in some divider walls to separate the different scenes. Because, dark rides are filled with lots of different scenes typically, lots of cool effects and things to look at. Dark ride is a term that's just kind of more recently, I think, become more widespread. But I remember it wasn't too long ago that I had to explain to my family when I was working at Disney World what a dark ride was. So if you happen to be one of those people, well, here's a quick explanation. It's essentially a slow track moving ride that it kind of goes through and tours around some sort of scenery. Now, typically these rides are pretty mild in nature. A couple really good ones to think of right off the top of my head is the Men in Black alien encounter in whatever it's called at Universal Studios. Even the Harry Potter rides, like Forbidden Journey, would technically be a dark ride. So typically those type of rides, there are some coasters that kind of blur the line a little bit. A good example would be the Mummy at Universal Studios. Also, you'll learn really quickly that most of my rides and experiences come from Universal Studios, Islands of Adventure, and then Disney World and Disneyland. Those are kind of, and then every once in a while you might hear me say talk about Busch Gardens or something. But growing up, Disney World and Disneyland were a couple of the biggest places that we went, and so those are kind of my reference for everything. So just putting in some minor decorations on the inside here now that we're done building the floor and a lot of the walls. Not all of them, as you'll see, the walls continuously change throughout the video. The entire build is just in a constant state of flux, and so you'll see things change from time to time, especially this wall to the left. That wall to the left there is a nightmare and a half, and I still don't like how it turned out in the end. It's not bad. I was able to mask a lot of its issues. When you're riding the ride, you can't really tell, but if you bring the camera in, you're gonna see all sorts of jank. But that's sort of how I build rides in the first place, is I typically build exactly what people are going to be looking at on the ride. All the behind the scenes things, up above, down below, behind you, I don't unless the camera is going to be pointing at it on the ride, I don't worry too heavily about the theming and scenery. Now, there is some exceptions, especially like tight knitted coasters that are constantly looping in and out of itself and whatnot. You're going to want to theme about every angle possible, because you never know which angle your coaster is actually going to end up viewing some of your scenery. So you got to be a little bit more careful with that. But with dark rides, typically they're very slow moving. They're on a flat plane unless there's a slight bit of elevation. This is a ghost train technically. That I think this is considered a type of coaster. It's not entirely a dark ride, though typically they're used inside of haunted houses. That's where it gets its name, where you kind of tour around all the different haunted rooms, and they can unlock and the car can spin. They're capable of going down mild slopes and getting some like mild, airtime over little bunny hops and stuff, sort of like how I have it here. You won't ever see one like really laid out like this, because this is sort of a strange layout for a ghost train. Typically they're very flat and they kind of poke out. They're in a facade, they're in like a show building with that's typically heavily themed, lots of theming, and every once in a while they'll kind of poke out, like the track itself will carry the cars out of the building itself just briefly, or just to get a quick glimpse. They're not rides that are typically seen in use very often anymore. It's kind of sad. I've never actually gotten to ride a ghost train. I would love the chance to someday. If any of you watching happen to know a really must-ride ghost train somewhere, be sure to leave a comment down below telling me where. Speaking of comments down below, this is an interactive series like always, so this ride is going to need a name. And as I continue decorating, you're going to see kind of the theme that we're going for here. So that way you can kind of use it to maybe come up with a good name. Sort of the general idea I have for this ride is some sort of either some sort of quote-unquote nutty professor, or some sort of eccentric genius that his whole life goal and career and passion is building tree ornaments and for Christmas trees. And as the years move along, people loved his beautiful hand-blown glass ornaments that he used to create back, several hundred years ago. But as times move along, people are getting less and less interested in just generic glass bulbs. People expect lights, and they expect movement, and they expect special effects, because this is the age of technology, right? So he's trying to figure out how to make new bulbs that are extremely exciting and extremely impressive, and so he's kind of toying around with some maybe experimental chemicals in his warehouse to try to develop the perfect new must-have ornament. And that's sort of the general theme and idea that I had going into this ride, and that's sort of how I'm going to be theming it. This first room here, technically the first scene of the ride, is just going to be a little bit of a showroom of the bunch of different bulbs and just general decorations and stuff, and just sort of like what you would expect to see on a tour. There's some packages because it's right around Christmas and maybe people are buying the bulbs and ornaments, and so he's packing them up and shipping them away. It's obviously very, very close to Christmas, so you'll see here in a minute that some of the shelves may be in disarray and knocked over. Like, people are in a hurry in here trying to grab all the ornaments off the shelves and stuff them into boxes to get them, sent out. That sort of thing. And I really like doing little subtle storytelling like that. Of course I'm talking about it and it's not even showing it on the screen, but we'll get there in just a moment, I promise. But first we got to put up some flags. I found these pretty cool little flags that I think are typically used for like go-karts and stuff like that, but you can color them whatever color you want. So I got a nice red and green pattern going on, sort of like the entirety of the inside of this building. And I'm just kind of stringing them across the roof here to kind of give a cool look as you turn around the corner and you just get hit in the face with Christmas everything. Going in here is the bookshelves, not the bookshelves, but the shelves. I mean, I guess they could be used for books or anything that you need a shelf for, right? But as you can see, I'm putting them in. You can see the bookshelf on the far right is kind of tilted over, and I kind of made it look like it might have hit into a tree and then bumped in the tree and knocked the tree sideways and stuff like that. And then I start littering the ground with all sorts of bulbs of every color, shape, and size. And as you can see, there's a lot of really bold red and green, and that's sort of the theme I wanted to go for with this ride in general. I mean, yeah, it's your typical Christmas, but this is, as Christmas as it gets, at least on the surface level, right? So you might as well embrace those traditional colors. And so I went full on holiday, Christmas, red and green sort of vibe and theme for the inside of this ride, just to show that this professor, this inventor, is maybe doesn't have all of his screws quite fastened tightly enough, right? He might have a little bit of a loose something going on. But that's something that I guess I should talk about, is why the inside is so drastically different from the outside. From the outside, I wanted the building to look kind of muted, but very pretty with all of the decorations when everything is said and done. And I wanted it to kind of fit in with the rest of the environment. As with the inside, I wanted to be very bright and playful and kind of chaotic and whimsical and weird. And that's kind of what we're going to be pushing into a little bit here more in just a few minutes. But with that being said, I'm going to leave you all with a few minutes of just good old holiday jams, and I hope you enjoy watching the build. I'll be back in just a couple minutes to continue talking about what we're doing. So I'll see you in just a minute here. I almost said I'll see you next time. The video's not ending. It's just a quick little break. Man, I'm off my game. But yeah, I'll be back here in just a minute or two, and I hope you enjoy. So, a lot has happened over the last several minutes now, hasn't it? We've already cleared 2 rooms now, 2 scenes, completely done. Well, not completely. As you'll see, I kind of go back through and kind of tweak things. Like I said, constant state of change, constant state of flux. This ride is never truly done. But we blasted through 2 rooms there. That second room, after the first room, that second room has a load of triggered effects that's going to happen as you come through the door. You know, one of the new test ornaments kind of malfunctions and lights a chain of events of another one going off, and then ultimately leading to an explosive barrel that blows up, and then as you round the corner, a confetti cannon kind of just blasts you in the face. It's sort of like a what the fuck was that room, I guess. But it really is sort of a cool little effect, especially once I start doing the nighttime lighting. As you can see, I'm just kind of putting in a focal point for the end of the hallway. I decided, since we had some of those test ornaments in the back, what about making like a bigger test ornament? You know, just how far has he gone trying to make these chaotic, explosive ornaments that he fully intends for people to put on their Christmas tree. If he's not careful, he might be going out of business here soon. But as you can see, you kind of venture up into a restricted zone where all of his experimental stuff kind of goes on, and you end up falling down a chute and going through a magical sort of area that makes his ornaments with magic. You know, this is Christmas, right? So this is some of that Christmas magic that we all talk about. I'm just sort of fitting the fence around the frame of the ride here, but I'm going to be moving it over behind the building just to make it a little bit easier to work on. Ultimately, this stayed pretty simple, but originally I was thinking this was going to be a lot more complicated, so I kind of brought it out here to work on, but I realized that the effect that I wanted could be achieved relatively simplistically, so it doesn't take too long to really get this whole kind of electric magic cage. It's a little bit sci-fi looking, but you know, we can use our imaginations, right? I'm not sure how well it fits in retrospect theme-wise, but it's sort of, you know, that big climatic moment after going down the the little slide on the inside. I'll tell you, the most frustrating thing about this game is some of these precise movements that you have to do. I don't know if it's maybe my mouse or if it's the game itself, but I swear, looking at this footage, you realize that the game is just mostly fighting the controls back and forth of, you know, these little tiny movements, trying to align everything just perfectly and not quite doing it. Just all these little things that aren't quite aligned just perfectly. And, you know, as a person watching this, you probably won't notice. A person maybe even downloading the park and checking out the park and the rides for themselves probably won't notice. But, you know, when you're building it, when you're the creator, you know where you cut corners and all the little places that you weren't quite able to get exactly the way that you were hoping to be able to get it. And so there's quite a bit of that going on in this. But this is sort of the last major scene, and it's sort of the bulb room, right? Like we're on the bulb chute where these new magical giant bulbs are coming down into the storage room, and it's just overflown with different bulbs and ornaments and stuff like that. In the end, though, like, it doesn't really matter because you end up booking it through this room at such a ridiculous pace that you unfortunately miss out on a lot of the little decorations and detail in here. But because of that, I didn't feel too guilty about copy and pasting a lot of these ornaments. Now, don't get me wrong, this definitely took a sweet sweet amount of time. Especially setting all these bulbs up just right. This is fast forwarded. Remember, this is fast forwarded by like 200% or something like that. So everything you see here, all in all, this build from start to finish took roughly 5.5 hours. So no, it's definitely not my longest build, but definitely more up there. And that's mostly because you'll see there's quite a few cuts throughout this video. I had so many issues with the building aspect of this ride itself, like the actual walls and the dividing rooms. I think my issue was kind of having this upstairs section just to have a little drop. Having it by itself probably wouldn't have been too hard, but the fact that I have the track kind of loop back underneath itself created more issues than I would ever have originally expected. And if I was doing this a second time, the track would be laid out completely different. Because ultimately, in the end here, I don't love the track layout. It's not bad, but I don't love it. Going forward, I'm going to do my best to kind of really fall in love with the track layout instead of just putting down a track layout and saying, hey, I'll make it look good later. I don't think that's a good mentality to kind of go into this sort of build with. And that's sort of what I did. The end of the first episode, I just quickly put down this track, and I was like, okay, good enough. And that was after doing all the other buildings and everything. I was having a little bit of play fatigue and creator's fatigue, whatever you want to call it. And I sort of was kind of just winging it. And at the beginning of this episode, I just went with it. I didn't even think about it that much. So if I had a second chance, I would probably do a very different layout. I'd probably do a more traditional ghost train layout. That's if I even kept the ghost train. I just wanted something that could have a little bit of a thrilling moment without taking up a lot of space. And there's some coasters that could do that, but not many. So maybe in the future I would have, maybe I'll pick one of the coasters that can do that. But all in all, I do really like this creation. I feel like I'm sort of bad-mouthing my own project here, but I don't know. I think it's important to kind of look at things with unbiased opinion and a critical eye, especially when they're your own creations. But I just like to critique and go over everything I did with a fine-tooth comb, I suppose. But so now I'm just doing some, what's this called? Queue decorating. Not much of a queue for this ride. Hopefully it doesn't get too long of a line. I do plan on opening this park up in the future. I want to have at least 2 or 3 more rides before I even consider it. So originally, like I said, this was going to be a mini park, and I still think it's going to be a smaller park. But I've gotten a couple more ideas that I want to do, so it might be a little bit bigger than originally intended. But I do want to try to make sure I keep the scope down on it just a little bit because, Christmas is at the end of this month. So I only have about, 3.5, 4 weeks to get this all wrapped up and put together and looking good. So I gotta make sure that I'm able to hopefully do all of this before Christmas. But I think it's really starting to come together. I really like this ride. And doing the nighttime lighting on this ride changes it entirely. It goes from looking kind of bare bone amateurish, in my opinion, to looking next level. Lighting in this game is so crucial, especially for dark rides. But I still go with the mentality of less is more. I try to keep all my colors from blinding people, all my lights from blinding people. I don't want everything to look like it's glowing, especially since this game does weird things when it comes to like shadows and light casting through walls. I really try my best to avoid the ride itself affecting the lighting around the building. That's something that I wish was a little bit better in this game. is you can really ruin the look and aesthetic of the outside of your park itself by having too many lights and too many crazy effects going on inside of your rides if you aren't careful on where you position them. A couple of these effects do come through the building. They're not super noticeable. They're not at eye level when you're down on the ground, but they're definitely there. But anyways, I think I'm gonna go for just another minute or two and let you guys listen to some more Christmas music as we come back here in just a moment for the final POV of the ride. So yes, you will get to experience this wonderful, new, exciting, thrilling, yet daring creation on your own in just a moment here. So I'll be back in just a second, guys. Alright, I am back. So we're just putting in some outside details and decorations, such as putting a door up here, sort of like a loft area. You can think maybe Santa himself comes out from there and waves down to the guests, maybe roaming the park or something like that, or who knows, maybe the professor or the inventor himself that owns this factory will come out there and look down at the people that are waiting in line to buy his new ornaments. You never know if this is a real theme park, what those doors could be used for. You can see some windows there also. Those windows, guests aren't ever really going to be able to look in them. They just kind of lead to an empty room in there anyways. There's nothing in there. I think I might go back and put a Christmas tree or two in those windows, just so if you do look up there by chance, you can have something to look at. So now I think we're about to do some nighttime lighting. Yep, here we are doing nighttime lighting, and you can see over on the left, when I swivel the camera around, that you can see the ride's lights bleeding through a little bit, so I'm going to have to put some trees up there or something to block that a little bit better. But anyways, it's about time for that POV, so buckle up everyone. I hope you enjoy the ride. And there we have it. I hope you guys enjoyed the ride. If you did, let me know what you thought down below in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Building Santa's Village. I need to think of a name for this park. Speaking of names, I need a name for this ride, a name for the carousel in the middle, and then yeah, sure, why not? Let's think of a name for the park itself. I'll pick my favorites, and thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next episode. Take care, everyone.